Are you looking for a job in Tri-Cities, Washington? Then you're in luck, because today I'm going to be talking about some of the biggest industries and employers in the area. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications when I release new videos. Always putting out lots of good information about the Tri-Cities area as well as the real estate market. A lot of people that move to Tri-Cities are moving here for a job, so if you're watching this, you may already have a job and this might not mean a lot to you, but there are some people who choose to locate here for the cost of living, the lifestyle, maybe they have family or friends in the area. And so for you guys, I'm going to be talking about the 6 major industries in town that really drive the economy and provide a lot of jobs. Several years ago, an acronym was developed in order to memorize these industries, and the acronym is the WHAM. You may have heard me talk about it in other videos. It stands for Technology, Hanford, Education, Wine, Agriculture, and Medical. Great part about these 6 and why we talk about them a lot is they aren't recession proof per se, but they are industries that will weather the recessions a lot better than some others. If you think about those 6 that I just said, a lot of the times they are steady, and whether we're in a recession or whether it's a booming economy, those jobs are going to be there regardless because they are a required part of the city and of just society in general. So when I say technology, you might first think of like Silicon Valley or Seattle, areas that are really heavy in software engineers and software development, as well as electronics. But a lot of the times people forget that technology can be a lot of other things as well. So aside from just digital technology and the advancements we make with software, there's also the scientific technology and technological advances in other fields as well. So long before smartphones and computers were a thing, obviously the whole reason that Richland was developed in the first place was due to the Hanford site and its involvement in the Manhattan Project in World War II. So the Hanford nuclear site is located about 30 miles northwest of Tri-Cities. After the war had completed, the contract for the Hanford lab was actually awarded to Battelle. A couple of years later in 1965, they renamed it the Pacific Northwest Laboratory. 30 years later in 1995, it was renamed as the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory and is now one of only 17 national laboratories operated by the Department of Energy in the entire US. So that leads us to one of the biggest employers in Tri-Cities and a name that pretty much everyone is familiar with, which is Battelle, or Pacific Northwest National Laboratories, otherwise known as PNNL. PNNL is known for employing a lot of engineers and scientists. They have over 5,300 employees that they employ in the Tri-Cities area. Their jobs vary from internships all the way up to PhD level applicants, so there's a wide variety of experience levels are required there, as well as not just engineering and scientist jobs, but they require obviously other people for clerical work, administrative work, management, so there's lots of different jobs available, and like I said, a big employer in Tri-Cities and what really drives the technology aspect of the Tri-Cities economy. It's really hard to talk about jobs in the area or anything to do with the economy without talking about Hanford. So in 1940, Richland had a population of under 300 people. 10 years later, in 1950, the population of Richland had grown to 22,000 people. That's an 8,800% increase in 10 years, which is absolutely unheard of. So obviously in those early years, the focus of the Hanford site was to produce plutonium for the nuclear bombs that were built during the Manhattan Project and later on dropped on Japan. After the war, there was obviously still nuclear reactors there that were operating, and then later on, as late as 1989, officially the project for the site cleanup got approved, and ever since then that's what's been driving all of the jobs and a large part of the economy in Tri-Cities is the cleanup effort to make sure that all the nuclear waste is properly disposed of, converted, stored, whatever needs to happen to make sure it does not become a danger to the Columbia River. So for the next 5 years, Hanford's annual budget is $1.1 billion, and yes, that's billion with a B. After that, it starts to taper off as they hope to have the VIP plant online and transfer over to more operations and less of the construction, but the budget isn't going to like cut in half or anything in that time. It's going to taper off as they start bringing more projects online and start transitioning away from that initial infrastructure build. But needless to say, the Hanford site is a huge driver for the economy, and there's quite a few different contractors and companies that are involved in contributing to that project. One of the biggest ones is Bechtel, who employs 2,000 people in the area. They were awarded the contract to complete the construction of the vitrification plant. Another big contractor is Washington River Protection Solutions. They employ about 2,300 people in the area, and they're mostly focused on the tank operations facet of the cleanup. Another big one is the Central Plateau Cleanup Company, who employs 2,100 people, and they focus on the 4 Ds, which is deactivation, decommissioning, decontamination, and demolition. Rounding out some of the bigger contractors is the Hanford Mission Integration Solutions, or HMIS. They employ 1,900 people and focus mostly on site services. So that includes water, power, road maintenance, IT, and then also safety and training on site. Last but not least, there's the Department of Energy, which is actually the federal government itself, who's obviously in charge of the whole project and who awards the contracts. They have about 400 employees split between 2 offices, the Richland Operations Office and the Office of River Protection. As we move into the E in the WAM, we're going to be talking about education. Now, this includes post-secondary as well as K through 12 education. In total, we're looking at over 10,000 employees between the public K through 12 education system, the private education system, and then those post-secondaries I mentioned as well. Now, the biggest portion of those employees, so about 8,000 of that 10,000 plus, come from the 3 major school districts in Tri-Cities, which are the Richland School District, the Kennewick School District, and the Pasco School District. So they account for about 95% of employees for the K through 12 education system. There are 3 other school districts in the surrounding areas as well, but they are definitely on the smaller side. But if you're looking to live in Burbank, Findlay, or Benton City, those would be options obviously to look at for as far as getting teaching jobs or jobs in the education system in those cities. And then on top of the public education system, there are several private schools in town as well. So if you're interested in teaching at a private institution, there's options there. The other big employer in the education sector is obviously the post-secondary education. So there we're looking at the 2 big ones being WSU Tri-Cities as well as CBC, which is Columbia Basin College. Both of those offer a variety of options for certificates, associate degrees, and bachelor's degrees. And between those 2 institutions, you're looking at about 2,000 employees total combined. When people think wine, they may not originally think of Washington State, given that a lot of people picture Seattle and kind of the evergreen state. But as soon as you get over the Cascades, we really do have a lot drier and warmer climate that's a lot better as far as agriculture. And a lot of people don't realize that Washington State is actually the 2nd largest wine producing state in the US behind, you guessed it, California. Now, it should be mentioned that California accounts for about 84% of the US's wine production in total, whereas Washington accounts for 5%. So it's not like we're going to be overtaking them anytime soon and becoming the new Napa, but it is cool that Washington does produce the 2nd most wine to California. And why that's relevant to Tri-Cities is because if you draw a 50-mile radius around Tri-Cities, there are over 200 wineries located within that circle that you will have drawn out. So that means almost 1/3 of all the wineries in Washington State are basically 50 miles as a crow flies of Tri-Cities. Now, I couldn't find exact numbers, but the wine industry in Washington directly employs about 33,000 people. So judging by kind of some rough calculations, I would guess that somewhere between 2,500 and 5,000 people work in the wine industry directly within Tri-Cities and those surrounding areas. So some of the major wine producers in the area that you may have heard of are Kiona, Frechette, Bookwalter, Barnard Griffin, Tagaris, Goose Ridge, Terra Blanca, Hedges. I could honestly go on forever because like I mentioned, there's about 200 of them, but if those names don't ring a bell, I would definitely recommend giving some of their wines a try. Now, when I was talking about wine, I did mention how Eastern Washington tends to be a lot underrated as far as its agriculture, because a lot of people think of Washington as basically Seattle and the rainy West Coast. But there's a huge agricultural hub around Tri-Cities and in Southeast Washington in general. And although Idaho is known as the biggest potato producing state and they do produce the most potatoes, Washington actually does produce more potatoes per acre than Idaho. So arguably we could take that title from them, but we'll let them keep potatoes. So speaking of potatoes, one of the biggest agricultural employers in the area in food processing is Lamb Weston. They have plants in both the Richland and Pasco area and employ about 3,000 people from the Tri-Cities and surrounding areas for all their local food processing operations. They're known to hire for a wide variety of roles, ranging from maintenance and operations to engineering and administration. So if you're interested in working for Lamb Weston, I would definitely check them out because they do offer quite a few different roles. It's not just kind of one profession or one type of person that's going to get hired there. First Fruits Farms is another big employer in the Tri-Cities area. They employ about 2,200 people, and although their largest orchard isn't technically in Tri-Cities, it's located in Prescott, which is about 40 miles east of Tri-Cities. That main orchard covers over 4,300 acres of land and produces mostly apples, pears, and cherries. On top of that, they got a 1.1 million square foot packing and storage facility, as well as an 11 million square foot temperature controlled storage site. On that same agriculture and food processing mention, we should talk about Tyson Fresh Meats. They have a major plant located in Wallula, which is just a little bit east of the Tri-Cities. They employ about 1,400 people from that plant and the surrounding operations. So anything, mostly maintenance and operations staff, but they do have other roles as well there. And although it hasn't come into operation yet, there is a Dairygold facility that's expected to go online sometime in 2023 and start its operations. They're going to be bringing 200 brand new direct employees or jobs to the area, and they're expected to contribute to 1,200 jobs total in as far as all the downstream and logistics jobs that will come from that Dairygold facility. And last but not least, we round out the WHAM with our M, which is medical. Now, we can't forget about obviously what we've been through in the last few years with COVID and the pandemic and how hard all those people in the medical industry and all the first responders worked to try to make sure everyone could go home safe and healthy to their families every day. There are 3 major healthcare providers in the Tri-Cities in that medical field that employ about 5,600 people between the 3 of them in total. Now, there is one company in town that kind of stands head and shoulders above the other ones as far as numbers go, and that is Cadleck. Now, there's a good chance you know someone who works at Cadleck or you've been to one of their facilities. They employ over 3,800 people at their, I want to say a couple dozen different branches and different operations in town, ranging from hospitals to special clinics and everything in between. And they have facilities located in West Richland, Kennewick, and West Pasco. The second of the big 3, as far as the medical community is concerned, is Trios Healthcare. Now, they have a hospital, an urgent care clinic, and then 4 other smaller clinics and employ about 1,100 people. All of their clinics are located in Kennewick. The Southridge Hospital and Care Center, which are located right beside each other, do account for the majority of those employees, though. And then the last of the big 3 for the medical industry is Lords. They're primarily located in Pasco, although they do have one counseling location in Richland. They employ about 700 people between their facilities. So if you're thinking about moving to the Tri-Cities and you were looking for job options as far as what was out there and available, I hope this helps. Now, this doesn't cover all of the industries by any means. These are just 6 of the bigger ones that we feel really drive the economy and have provided stable, lasting careers for many people over the years. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell for notifications. I'll continue to be putting out more information about Tri-Cities that hopefully helps new as well as current residents learn more about the area. And if you have any questions, as always, please leave them in the comments below. I'll see y'all next time.